Hello and welcome to another episode of Tejano Traveler Adventures. I'm your host, Wally, and today we're going to go over La Salle and his follies. There's something called the La Salle Odyssey that is a collection of museums and historic sites along the Texas coastal plains that have to do with La Salle. One of the first locations is the Indianola La Salle Monument. It's right next to the bay and it celebrates La Salle. La Salle was a French explorer. He had a lot of success up in the northern part. Discovered the Mississippi, Ontario, Lake Erie, I think. Some Canadian stuff. But once he got to Texas, it was pretty much a big old mess. Our first stop is the Coastal Bend Museum in Victoria, Texas. This is where they keep some of the La Salle's original artifacts. While there, you can play around with old conquistador helmets, which I love, and do some rock art to mimic some of the great art that the Native Americans used to do. And then they also have the cannons, La Salle's cannons that they found. And we have one of them. The one that's missing right there is in the Bob Bullock Museum here in Austin, Texas. But those are the cannons that they buried so that they wouldn't fall into enemy hands. That's me pretending to navigate Matagorda Bay, trying not to sink the ships. Now they also have the Navy Museum in Victoria, Texas, but it's got odd hours and I never seem to be around when those odd hours are open. Another stop along the La Salle Odyssey is the Calhoun County Museum. Now they're going to showcase, these museums are going to showcase a lot about the Karankawa Indians. They were the Native Americans that lived along the Texas Gulf Coast. They used to feed on fish and prickly pears and all those delicious things in South Texas. The museum has a lot of artifacts, carriages, old bottles, tools, Pioneer Day furniture, goblets, pictures, the usual museum stuff. It's got some of the La Salle. There's the Fort St. Louis, which they built here in Texas, and the Karankawa was burnt down after the settlers stole their canoes. And some artifacts found at LaBelle, from the LaBelle that sank. That was La Salle's ship, the last one that remained. One was taken by privateers. The other one decided to go back, and then two of them sank. There we have pictures of what is left of the LaBelle, which you can see at the Bob Bullock Museum. There's a lighthouse. There used to be a lighthouse out in the bay in front of Port Lavaca. That's one of the original lenses. And like I said, there's lots of artifacts here and there just to look at and remind you of some of the history of the area. Bison Head and some more local history. In Palacios, Texas, they have La Petite Belle, a 1/3 size replica of what the Belle used to look like. And it looks pretty small, so that leads me to believe that the actual ship wasn't that big. Usually we think of ships and they're big, huge, Titanic-sized ships. No, they're pretty small. Then we have the BRAZORIA Museum, which is in a nice building. There's the lens again. And it's got a lot of local history stuff. If you're a local history buff and you like going to little museums to find out about local history, these museums are probably for you. all of them contain La Salle objects from the French exploration, and then their own little local history objects like these quilts that they have here. Matagorda Museum is next. It's a nice building that talks about some of prehistoric life, like the mammoths, and then it talks about the Karankawas. Now the Karankawas is a tribe that doesn't exist anymore. They ended up dying from disease and war, and eventually got chased down into Mexico, and then Juan Cortina ended up killing the last band of them. That's what they looked like. They were tall, had tattoos, they were known as runners and wrestlers, lived along the Gulf Coast. There's a cannon that they found. Those handles on the cannon show dolphins, which lets you know that it was a marine cannon that belonged on ships, not on land. There's some more artifacts from the BELLE recovery. There's a mock-up of what the BELLE looked like. As you can see, it's not that big. And some more artifacts from the exploration of the sinking ship. There's ropes and pulleys and bells, the beads. Each of those beads is considered its own individual artifact. And that's me playing with the lens. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something new. Don't forget to like and subscribe.